Hello and welcome to the Side Netting podcast, the place we took all the latest goings on in the world of football, play a couple of games, and almost definitely go off on a tangent or two. I'm joined, as always, by my friend, my cousin, and most importantly, my co-host, Kieran Burke. Kieran, we're back.
We're back. It's been a while. I was bobbing my head along to the intro music there. I was getting
Still
into
a
the
bob.
groove. It's been too long. I was loving life there. But yeah, I've been good. Long time no. Well, I'll say long time no see. We both know that's a lie, but long time no pod.
No, keep up the imagination. Come on, you're breaking the. What is it? It's not a fourth wall if you're listening. I guess you're breaking that metaphorical barrier we've built up here, kids. We
Contrary
haven't
to
even heard
contrary
each
to
other's
popular
voices.
belief, we do speak outside
Absolutely.
the four walls of this podcast.
Absolutely not. I have not heard an ounce of that voice for 2 weeks, and I've been ramping and raring to hear those dulcet tones again.
I can't say I blame you, pal. And the feeling is, of course, mutual as well.
Oh, stop it. Or maybe one more.
Nah, that's what you're getting.
So, kids, we're into December. We're well into the thick. We missed a couple of big weeks of Premier League action. So we'll jump right into the next one it's not really a double game week, it's two separate game weeks, but we've got a section of games over the next couple of days in the midweek, and got another game on the weekend, which is why we're this early on in the week in our little comeback, and we've got a double bubble predictions. So we'll start off with the midweek games, and we'll kick in with Wednesday night, 7:30, Brighton against Brentford.
Well, if you are a regular listener, you know my
Where's this going?
Brentford scores are either 1-1 or 2-2, depending on the opposition.
Oh.
And I feel it'll be quite an open game, so I've gone 2-2.
I've gone the same. Brighton 1 win in 8. Those injury troubles, they haven't kept a clean sheet all season. I feel like this is a real combination for a prime draw. 4 draws in their last 8 have Brighton. Combine that with the drawiness of the Brentford side, I think there's only one result here.
Yeah, agreed. It was 1-1 or 2-1. It was a bit of a toss-up in the end, but I think it'll be a decent game, that. But as you say, both teams struggling to really hit a bit of form. They sort of...
Yeah, Brentford are starting to level out a little bit more. 4 wins in their last 6. Those 2 losses coming to Arsenal and Liverpool, so you can't really put too much stock in those as losses. So they're starting to level back out. They're a real tricky run, real struggle at the start of the season. They've started to bowl back into, I was going to say contention, but their rightful place as the mid-table team in the Premier League, levelling out at 10th place, I think.
Yeah. I think with the European schedule as well, it's taken its toll a little bit, which is to be
Brighton.
expected. Yeah,
I was talking about Brentford there as the mid-table in the last 6. But yeah, Brighton have had a bit more of a struggle, as I say, 1 win in 8, and that win coming against Nottingham Forest. They lost to Chelsea at the weekend. They've had, you'd think, very winnable games where they drew to Sheffield United, they drew to Everton, they drew to Fulham. It's been tricky there. So, as we both say, a draw here against Brentford, I think, will be the right result, but won't exactly be what Brentford are after, or what Brighton are after, or Brentford for that matter.
Next game then, Palace v Bournemouth. My Andoni agenda is over.
Oh.
So, on that note, I'm going for a Bournemouth win.
I had you nailed on for a Palace win. I thought this would be one of the differentials.
Now my Andoni, agenda can be put to bed. I'll be loving Bournemouth again. So I'm going 2-1 Bournemouth. They've looked good their last few games. Obviously, very good draw against Villa, who are absolutely flying at the minute on the weekend. So they're starting to click Bournemouth a bit more, I think. Obviously, very, very poor start to the season. Few awful results, but they're definitely coming into it a bit more now. A few of those forward players starting to click. Semenyo, again, looking good on the weekend. Solanke with another goal on the weekend. So I think Bournemouth will have a bit too much for Palace, who, for me, they're just a classic team that they'll pick up points against teams you feel they should, which some would argue Bournemouth are one of those teams. But they never really give you much more than that. Obviously, they've got exciting attacking players, Elise, Eze, but I think they'll lose to Bournemouth.
Thing with Palace though is recently, have they even been doing that? You're thinking their last 5, they beat Burnley, yes, but they lost to Everton, they lost to Luton. West Ham is maybe sort of in the top end of those teams. They may be beaten, but they drew to them. When they start to struggle against those kind of teams, that could, and they're on quite a bad run of form anyway, Palace, you don't, at this stage of the season, you don't want to be sort of slinking further and further down, which is a big danger for them. And Bournemouth sort of go in the other direction. They're on a really good run of form themselves. I think if you asked a Bournemouth fan, going into this run of 5 games where you're playing Liverpool, you're playing City, you're playing Newcastle, you're playing Villa, and then Sheffield United thrown in as well, you give them 7 points out of 15. I think they're biting your hand off at that. That's a massive set of 7 points for them. I think maybe in the next few you're going to start to see Bournemouth. I'm not talking massive leaps, but a few jumps up the table.
Yeah, I think it's starting to click a bit for them now. New manager coming in. Obviously, sometimes it takes a while to implement a style of play. And as you said, not to say, they're looking absolutely unbelievable, but you can definitely see the quite obvious improvement. And that reflects in the fact that they're obviously sat on 13 points now, not comfortably out of the drop. Obviously, we're only 14 games in, but a 6-point cushion at this stage, I think, based on how they looked, as you said, about 5 games ago, and with the teams they had to play.
And the trajectory they're now on in terms of form as well. That combined, you think, going into their next few games now, where you take away Man United, who they've got, who, to be fair, Man United at the moment are a very beatable side. Palace, United, Luton, Forest, Fulham. As a next set of games, that could really be massive for this Bournemouth team in terms of jumping up the table. And I think they will. I think by the time they get to Spurs on New Year's Eve, I think they'll look a lot safer, a lot more comfortable. Maybe only a couple of places up positional-wise, but in terms of safety, I think they're going to be looking a lot prettier come the end of the year.
What score did you go for in that one then?
I also went 2-1. As I say, I did think this was going to be one of the ones where we went in different directions based on your previous, but I didn't know the walls had now been broken down between you and Big Andoni with Paul. I realised we said about the feud being over. We didn't say why. So Paul Heckingbottom getting sacked today from Sheffield United. A couple of people in our predictions we mentioned before did have him. There's a couple of points on the board for those folks, but not for us. I said David Moyes, very much not there. You said Big Andoni, Iraola, not there either. It was looking dangerous. It was looking, as we said a few times on the pod, it was looking possible come the last international break, and they've really done well. So, yeah, I've got 2-1 Bournemouth, continue the trajectory up the table. And into the next game, a very big game in Aston Villa and Man City, also on Wednesday night there at 8:30. What are you making of this one, Kiz?
Well, I've done something I never do, which is predict a Man City loss.
Oh!
So I'm going 2-1 Villa. Main reason being, Rodri is now suspended due to 5 yellow cards. Yeah. We saw what City looked like when Rodri got that red card. They're just not the same team. And that is credit to how big a player Rodri is for them.
Yeah, Rodri.
Whenever he's not in that team, they literally look so much more open. And you would argue they conceded 3 goals yesterday v Spurs. So you say, they're open anyway. But I think on the balance of the games you see City playing, they look to be in control anyway. Obviously, they've not had the best run of results recently, but
yeah, they've had a real weird patchy period. They've had 3 draws now. Before that, they had 3 wins. Before that, they had 2 losses. So they've been going through this sort of real patchy period, City, and that's not something you associate with a Man City team either.
You don't. In the same vein, though, it has been a tough run of games. Because it's City, you'd expect them to win every single game. I think we've said it before. The margin of error when you're up against City is 0 because they always just grind out those results. But happened last season, earlier doors in the season when there's perhaps less at stake, you do see them drop the odd point here and there, which obviously they have done. to be honest, if Rodri hadn't picked up that yellow yesterday, I would have probably edged a Man City win. That is how critical I think he is to this team. But obviously, in the same vein, Villa have just looked unbelievable. Obviously, they'll be a bit disappointed with that result yesterday, despite what we've just said about Bournemouth. They're giving them their credit for the pick-up in form they've had, based on how Villa have been.
They should be winning that game, definitely.
Yeah, you'd expect them to win away at Bournemouth based on form so far this season. But Villa still sat in fourth. They'll be very, very happy at the moment. And yeah, I think I can see them winning that. And with a win, they do actually go above City as well, which would... if someone said 15 games in, Villa would be 2 points ahead of Man City, you would just get a look of pure disbelief. Yeah, that's the interesting
thing as well. You mentioned that game yesterday. And in hindsight, that draw looked even worse for them. Because if they'd have won that game, they would already be above City. They'd be going into this game and a win would take them 5 points ahead.
Yeah.
And you look at a totally different situation there. Like, this is a massive week for Villa, and we'll talk about their game with Arsenal a little bit later on. But 2 wins out of 2 here, they could potentially go top, Liverpool results depending. But it could be a very big statement week for Villa, or it could really push them as this sort of tier of upper Europe team, your sort of 5th, 6th to 4th level, or, oh wow, Villa could be pushing. This will be the week for Villa, whether or not they go which way.
Yeah, it's hard to judge off 2 games, isn't it? But it does feel like a massive week. If they can get results at home to City and at home to Arsenal, you think, okay, there's not let's not get carried away, maybe not for the league, but top 4, if they're getting results against City and Arsenal, then you can't really write them off. Newcastle were there last year. Villa have every chance. They got quality. They got a good manager. So you never know. What result did you go for in that one?
So I have gone City. I've gone 3-1 City. I think after this run of games they've had, where they've had these 3 draws in a row, two wild draws of the 3 draws they've had in a row, they're going to really want, talking of statement wins, they're going to want to put in a statement performance down. You can see, based on the end of that game, with the referee blowing early for Grealish, that is an angry City team.
Yeah.
And I don't know if City are a team you want to play angry.
No, definitely not.
So I've gone 3-1 Man. Yeah, I've gone 3-1 Man City for that reason. With Bournemouth, Aston Villa a stumble against Bournemouth. Does that reflect in, or does like a late winner and sort of saving yourself from defeat, mentality-wise, what way does that push you?
Yeah, I think that is the game to watch this week. I think both teams will go for it. Villa aren't a team that are scared. They'll go there. They'll play their game. Obviously, they're not going to be completely naive, but they're at home. They'll fancy themselves against City. Yeah. It's a wounded City side. And as I said, without Rodri, I think Grealish is suspended as well.
He is indeed,
So obviously, not really been starting every game for City this season, but it's still an option they would have had potentially off the bench. They no longer have. So I think that's the game to watch for the midweek games, and looking forward to that one.
Yeah, a game that is on at the same time as that City game on Wednesday night. You've got Man United against Chelsea, a game based on the history, Kiers, I'd say is a lot less of a watchable game. The last 6 head-to-head for Man United Chelsea in the league, there has been 3 1-0s, 2 0-0s, and then the last game last season, United beat them 4-1. So, and then overall, in the last 50 I was looking at, United have won 17, Chelsea have won 17, and there's been 16 draws. So I've got a 0-0 draw for this game, based on all that.
Similar thinking for me. I didn't have the stats to back it up, but from memory, I think that's the game every season. Everyone seems to be up. It's not the most watchable with the supposed big teams. I've gone 1-0 to United.
Oh, okay.
I think they've just shown this season, even how bad they've been, the fact they're still up there, they're still getting wins. I know perhaps you'd say against lesser opposition, but I do see United, they just got that bit of know-how where they just seem to be able to grind out results this season. obviously they didn't get it done against Newcastle on the weekend, and the performance will probably anger United fans more than the result, because obviously Arsenal lost 1-0 away at Newcastle the other week. I know the controversy around it, but it's not exactly a shameful thing to go to St James's Park and lose 1-0. It happens as soon as Newcastle get in the lead. They're a very hard team. They get 10 men behind the ball, and they just make it a pain for you to try and get in behind them. So not a disgraceful result for United by any means, but I do just think they've got a bit more than Chelsea in terms of cuteness, I'd say, to win a game. But as you said, 0-0, it wouldn't surprise me one bit if it was a 0-0 either. We'll say this now, it'll be a 5-5 goal fest. But,
based on the history of that game, Kears, I think there's a chance. You'd say about United, about a 1-0, and then getting it over the line. A United stat, I say it's a stat, you look at the table, you see it, but they haven't got any draws this season. 8 wins, 6 losses. Chelsea with 4 draws on the more opposite end of things. Sort of goes what you're saying about them getting it over the line, but I've just got a dull draw for me written all over this, that no one will really think of much the next day.
Yeah.
And on to the last game of this game week, and the last game in predictions, the last game overall, Thursday night, 8:15, Spurs against West Ham.
Yeah, Spurs 3-1 for me. I think against West Ham, they're usually quite strong, and I think Spurs will be well up for it. Got a very good point on the weekend against a strong City team. That'll give them a lot of confidence, and I can see Spurs bouncing back. Obviously, they've been hit with injuries, suspensions, and they'll play their tiny violins till the sun comes up. But of course, they've had a tough few games. They've had injuries. They've had suspensions. I think, as I said, that result yesterday gives them a lot of belief, and I just see them bouncing back with a win. No win in 4, is it, in the league?
Yeah. So, 3 losses in a row, and then that draw yesterday for Spurs. The thing with that draw and playing City in general is when you are well aware that you're a team's bogey team, how does that impact the result? Because usually a draw like that against City, that's a massive boost. But when you know going into a game and coming out of a game that you usually get something against them, does that almost dullen that as a boost?
I think so.
Or do you think
you look at Arsenal away at Goodison the last 5 years?
Yeah.
The fans go into that game. We made a joke out of it earlier in the season, but it is that thing. And I'm sure I saw an interview of a player, I can't remember who, saying that was in the back of the players' minds when Arsenal won away at Everton this season. I think it might have been Saka, but that just shows it does bleed into the players as well. And I'm very sure in the lead up to that game, Pep would have been drilling that into the City players, and that probably puts a bit of doubt in the players' minds. So, as you say, Spurs.
But do you think on the opposite end that takes away from Spurs a bit, where they already know that they usually get points against City, so it's not as special, it's not as important in a run like they're in?
I don't think so. I think getting a point away at City, it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter what your run of games has been when you've played them the last 20 times. That can't be downplayed, especially with, the injuries they've got in that team. To go there with a centre-back partnership of Ben Davies and Emerson Royal and get a point at the Etihad, I think...
Oh, no, I'm not saying it wasn't a good point for them. It was a good result. But I mean, as a team, from a team mentality point of view, rather than from an outside looking in point of view.
As in, they might be slightly disappointed because...
Yeah, or maybe not even disappointed, but they're
like,
oh yeah, we sort of... That's usually what happens. We're still on a run of games without a win. Rather than, great, that's a massive point for us.
I feel like that Spurs team's quite a different team this year. Yeah. Perhaps that would be the case if it was very much the same 11 they've had for the past few seasons. But if you look at that Spurs team, it's a complete different team. The individuals, obviously, you've got your few in there that have been there for a few seasons. Son, Davis. There's a few that have been there a few seasons, but the bulk of that squad are new players. So I think that gives them that bit of belief. But I do get where you're coming from. It's a bit like, they might have said beforehand, as ridiculous as it sounds to say, they might have gone in expecting to get a result because
they're used to it. Yeah.
The past few seasons they have done. But I think that group of players needed a bit of a boost, which is why I've got them bouncing back for West Ham with a much needed win.
Yeah, I've got them 2-0 here. I think West Ham are on a solid bit of recent form on the most part. Sort of obviously that draw against Palace wasn't an awful result, was an awful game, but not awful, but not what you're after. I think 2-0 Spurs is going to be a sort of quite a routine win, I think, for Tottenham to get them back. And we're going to get onto the Newcastle game in a very quick moment. But after that, they're now on a lot easier run. So I feel like you've got to say with Tottenham is this was their test. And I know they've got injuries, fully understand that. But this was their test and they've completely failed that. These last run of games, the Chelsea game onwards, was their test. Lost to Chelsea, lost to Wolves, lost to Villa. As we say, a good point, but still a draw to City. That's a failure of a run when they were being touted as a team that were really going to push on. And I have seen Spurs fans mention they were quite aware that they were going to sort of level out. And I think most teams usually do. But when you're being pushed that way, that's your test, and they've failed that test. A bit like how Villa are going to have their test this week.
Yeah, we spoke about it in the last few weeks, whether, they're looking like they're going to be up there now, but there does come a point in the season where you might get a couple of injuries or you've got a tough run of games, and you have to come out the other side of it.
100%.
Arsenal last season, obviously, it got to about a midpoint where people were saying we couldn't, and we got through that initial bit.
We got through a couple,
but then it was then the bit towards the right at the end, the run-in, where
100%
we showed, the naivety where we've not been in that run-in before. I think similar thing for Spurs. As soon as a bit of pressure came on, they're top of the league. I appreciate they had a couple of injuries, but as you say, they did crumble. They've shown they're not going to challenge for the title this season, which there's no shame in that.
No,
they're still doing well.
Top four. Yeah.
Exactly. They're still doing well compared to what was said about them at the start of the season.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
But
just a bit
they will be disappointed. The Spurs fans can't lie to themselves. You're top of the league after 10 games in. You might start to think, clearly you start to think we're a very good side. Yeah. So there will be the disappointment that they've not been able to,
but it's
to keep it going.
It's taken its course a bit. There's a long way for this Spurs team to go, and they should be very happy with where they are at the minute. Yeah, but that's the midweek games. We'll go into the weekend games. We won't delve as deep on these games, Kiers, but teams you maybe haven't touched on in the previous conversation might have a little chat on, a little mention, and we'll get our scores in. So the first game of the weekend, we've got Crystal Palace against Liverpool, 12:30.
Yeah, 3-0 Liverpool for me. I think we've already spoke a bit about Palace and perhaps it's slightly underwhelming this season. Liverpool, on the other hand, just about got through that tricky test against Fulham on the weekend, but showed they can come out on the other side and win a game like that, which is always a positive. You're never going to be 100% perfect in every game you play over a 38-game season, but I think that showed a bit of some in there. So, I see them bouncing back with a more... Well, I say bouncing back, obviously, they still won on the weekend, but I think a more routine win for them. Yeah.
Definitely. They've got Sheffield United in the week. They'll win that. Then they've got Palace. I've got them 2-0 to beat Palace. And then they do go into a tricky run of form, Liverpool. They've got Man United, Arsenal, then they've got Burnley, should be winning that, and then they've got Newcastle. So into the new year, they have got a tricky patch. So that's where you really need to be winning these games to set yourself up. And I think they will, Liverpool. I think anyone that said they were going to drop off is looking like an absolute idiot who lacks complete ball knowledge at this point in the season.
Where did you have them in the league to start the season?
7th. The next game we've got Wolves and Nottingham Forest.
What was your score in the Liverpool Palace game?
2-0 Liverpool.
2-0. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll move on.
Yeah. There's two things we haven't talked about, but Wolves and Forest on Saturday afternoon at 3 p.m. Wolves have won 1 in 5, and that win came against Tottenham.
Yeah. It's not. Do you know what though? In fairness to Wolves, every game I've seen them in, they've not looked poor. Obviously, they beat City not too long ago. They've got real quality in that side. obviously watching the Arsenal game from an Arsenal fan's perspective on the weekend, we made it a lot harder than ourselves than we needed to. But that does give credit to Wolves as well, because they didn't make it easy. They didn't just, at 2-0, just give up on the game. They've got a lot of quality, like Acuna, Hwang. Like they've got real good quality in that side.
And against the Forest team who've won 1 in 10,
yeah,
I've got them winning this 2-0. Wolves, another 2-0 for me for Wolves.
Similar for me. I've gone 2-1 to Wolves there for the reasons we've just discussed. Forest been very underwhelming this season. If I'm honest, I see them getting dragged into the relegation battle as the league takes shape a little bit more. 2-1 Wolves, 2-1 Wolves.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think the longer this goes on, Steve Cooper could be the next manager in trouble. We might see over the next couple of weeks whether that will play out. Obviously, it's a different case where it's a long tenured manager, a lot of respect from him, from the board, so they might give him a lot longer, but they're on a real tricky run of form. But on to the next one. We spoke about Villa earlier, how this could be a very big week for Villa. Saturday evening, Villa-Arsenal, a big game for both teams.
Big game. Yeah, of course I fancy Arsenal. I'm going 3-2 Arsenal.
Going 3-2.
I just think we'll have a little bit too much for them, which obviously I've just said they're going to beat Man City, so read of that what you will. But I do just think it feels like a different Arsenal this season to me, where we might not be as pretty, but we're getting it done. Which we did get it done last season, but it didn't feel as sustainable at the time. For me, people, there's always noise around Arsenal, but you're not as fluid as you were. Of course we're not. We're getting people double up on our wingers every game because they know the threat.
What's happening this season is, that classic thing of, how will they play when teams figure them out? And teams have figured us out in terms of, doubling up on wingers, playing that low block. And this way of playing is us figuring out the figuring out.
Exactly. And I think that's credit to Arteta as well, because I think we said a few weeks ago about teams that do really well, sometimes on their first season in the Prem, I think was the conversation.
Yes.
And then teams figure them out the next season. Complete opposite ends of the table. But the point still applies. When you start to figure out how to play a team and maybe one team lays a blueprint down and they get a result, it's can you then adapt and show that you've got more than one side to your game, which we've done so far this season. I know, as we've said, it's still early doors, but it's reassuring to me that we're getting it done. And even though I'm saying that, obviously I've gone 3-2, which is quite a high scoring game, but I just think we'll get through. We'll get through it just about. But Villa away is a very tough game, and credit to them this season because they've just been unbelievable.
Yeah, 100%.
Quality they've got in that side.
We spoke a lot about them. I've gone 2-1 to sort of round that off. But
2-1 Arsenal, I hope.
2-1 Arsenal, yeah.
Good.
But it's going to be another very tricky game against a very good Villa side. Hopefully we get out the other end of it, and I think we should. But it's always when we do these predictions and we're predicting Arsenal games, I don't like putting this out in the universe, but
yeah.
But we should be winning that game, and hopefully we will. Up next, you've got Fulham and West Ham Sunday afternoon. We spoke a lot about West Ham earlier. We spoke about Fulham every week about what Brentford are to sort of that upper mid-table. Fulham are to that lower mid-table, your 14th, 15th. And I don't see them getting boost. They're not going to go up. They're not going to go down. They're going to be around that all season, really. I've gone 2-2. Based on how Fulham have been recently. They've been scoring goals.
1-1 for me. I think it's got a draw written all over it.
Yeah.
Both sides will cancel each other out. Both West Ham slightly less so, but a little bit underwhelming. West Ham went on a decent little run there where they looked like they were picking up, and then they've sort of stagnated a little again.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think 1-0. 1-0 in that one.
And then the last game we said about Spurs Newcastle. So the interesting thing with this is it's obviously away. I think if this was at St James's Park, I'd make a very different prediction. I've gone 3-2 Spurs because Newcastle away from home are a completely different beast to what they are at home. So I've got Spurs getting a very, very big win. I'd say that would be for them if they do get it done this weekend.
Completely agree. I've gone 2-1 Spurs, but pretty much for the exact reasons you just said there. Newcastle away from home is a complete different beast. And I think Spurs, obviously I predicted them to beat West Ham in the week. I think that will bleed into the weekend. Bit of confidence back in that Spurs team. And I see them edging that one. Won't be an easy game, but I think with Newcastle being away from home, I think that changes things completely. And I can see Spurs getting a big win there.
Yeah, I can see it being another Spurs entertaining game for certain. So there's our bumper back-to-back predictions. We'll see how we get on this week. 2 blocks of results. Hopefully get me back. If you win
More
either...
points to be won.
If you win either of these predictions, Kears, you've guaranteed the weekly win before Christmas. Currently 9-6 up. There's 3 game weeks until Christmas. But the overall score is 52-40 in your favour, which I can still narrow down. Maybe not as much in that second block of predictions, because we've gone for the same result each time, just with different scores. So we'll see how that goes. Obviously, next week we will circle back around, see how we're getting on, get some more predictions in as the Christmas period rolls on. But up next, we've got a Christmas to get to. We've got a Christmas drink special to get to. We've got some games to roll that on after this. So, for the second half of today's show, we have a couple of games to line up. So, as we've said over the last few months, in a couple of weeks' time, just before Christmas, myself and Kieran are going to do a little Christmas drink special. We'll have a couple of drinks, play a couple of games, and have a bit more of a loose chat, I am sure. But on that episode, someone is going to have to do a drinks-based forfeit set by the winner of our mostly weekly set of games, combined with our predictions tally, combined also with a check-in of our start of predictions tally. All those points will be rattled together to see who's won. So at the minute, on the games portion, Kieran, you're 4-1 up.
It's looking good, bruv.
I need to start clawing those points back, and we'll begin that with the quiz. Are you ready for the music? The quiz can't start till the music hits, Kiz.
I'm never been more ready than I am right now.
Let's hit it. Here we go, and we're in. And
Call
we're
me
in
Rizzle
on that
Kicks,
note.
because let's get down with the trumpets.
Bloody
if that
big
was
one.
a trumpet, my musical
know.
instrument knowledge isn't,
I don't feel that was. Let's just play it again. I don't feel like that was a trumpet. No, maybe it was.
Maybe more of a French horn sort.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, that is more a French horn vibe. Big up my French hornies.
Oh, you love them all, every single one.
Oh, I love every single one of my French hornies. That's my fan base, kids. That's my peoples.
Oh, they love
French
you
hornies
too.
aside, let's get into the quiz. So, this week, kids, I have split the quiz into 3 rounds. Round 1 is around most and least. Round 2 is around the month of December. And round 3 is the connections round. So there are 3 points to gain from the first round, 3 points from the second round, 4 points from the last round. And all you need to do is you need to get more than half. So 6 points wins you the point, less than 6, and I get another much needed point on the board.
Okay, let's do it.
So, are you ready?
Let's do it.
For the last time, French hornies.
Oh.
Okay, your first question, kids, in round 1, the most or least round. Which manager has taken charge of the most Premier League teams?
The most teams?
The most different teams.
Ooh.
So over the course of the Premier League, obviously 92 onwards, which manager has taken charge of the most teams? There's a lot of managers you can choose from.
That is tough.
There's a few managers that have cropped up across the years, but there's one manager that has evidently cropped up more than most all over the show. But Kieran John,
I'm struggling here.
Who is that man? Who's the first person that comes to your head?
In all honesty, for some reason, the first person that sprung to mind was Sean Dyche. But then when I thought about it, I can only recall him managing Burnley and Everton. So that was quite quickly withdrawn.
Would you like me to give you the number of teams?
Yes, please.
Or do you think that would make things worse?
Actually, the clue I'll have, can you just tell me whether they're still an active manager?
Are they still an active manager? I don't believe they currently are manager of any side, but I can confirm that for you right now. So they last managed a team, which was a Premier League team. They managed them in the last 18 months. They managed it. So from the last 2 years, I guess, the beginning of 2022 to now in December 2023, they were an active manager. They don't currently manage a team.
The most Premier League teams.
To tell you exactly when it was and who it was, I would give the game away. So they were an active manager in England from 2022, January. So in the last 2 years, they have been an active manager.
I've got two names in my head right now. And again, I can't really recall the team, so this is a bit of a baseless stab in the dark. The two names, for some reason, that came to mind were Ian Holloway and Alan Pardew.
What a pair!
I don't know why.
Two solid suggestions. Which one are you going to go with? Or is there a third that's jumping in?
A third's just jumped to mind, which is Steve Bruce,
based on Steve Bruce has joined. What a thruple that is! Steve Bruce, Alan Pardew, Ian Holloway.
That would be some party. That would.
I do feel like that is very much like a Channel 4 documentary, like a me and my.
Imagine them three on a road trip.
I could imagine Ian Holloway fronting one of those weird Channel 4 documentaries about like thruples and like deviancy, basically.
I was thinking more of like a Gino Gordon and Fred road trip.
Oh, we had very different vibes on that one.
I think Ian Holloway would be doing their heads in. You know what? I'm going to go Steve Bruce because the other two, they came to mind, but I couldn't really think behind it. But also, Steve Bruce.
Before I give you the answer, can we appreciate the absolute solid names of Steve, Alan, Ian?
Yeah.
I don't think there's been a single Steve, Alan or Ian born in the last 23 years.
I think you could be right.
There is definitely few and far between. And there should not be a single Steve, Alan or Ian under the age of 30.
Are we going to add that to the apologies list for the end of season?
No, that's not an apology. You should not be Alan if you're under 30. I'm not. Imagine going into your class and there's like 10-year-old Alan in the corner.
Oh, that's enough
like
to strike
smoking a cig and like nursing his pint in the corner of the classroom.
Oh, a little dragon stout on the go and the latest edition of the Weatherspoons News.
What, Ian walks in with a John Smith's in his hand? Like, come on.
Oh, we love it.
And I very specifically mean Steve rather than Stephen. Stevens are fine. Steve's a 50-year-old balding chubby man's name.
Oh, God. Right, well.
Who did you go with there, Kiz, by the way?
I went with Steve Bruce in the end.
Stephen Bruce, okay.
Stephen Bruce, yeah.
The correct answer is actually none of those three. It's Sam Allardyce.
Really?
He has managed 9 Premier League teams.
Sam. What was the last team he managed? 2022? Leeds. Oh.
Leeds, 2023, he managed Leeds. That's why I think it would have given the game away if I'd have said he managed earlier this season.
He managed 9 Prem teams.
Would you like to hear them?
I would.
You got Bolton, you got Newcastle, you got Blackburn, you got West Ham, you got Sunderland, you got Crystal Palace, you got West Brom, you got Everton, and you've got Leeds.
I'm intrigued to know how many big Steve Bruce has managed. I'm just looking at his Wikipedia now, but obviously you can't see whether they're Prem teams.
I was going to say he's dropped into Championship management more so.
Yeah.
Whereas Sam Allardyce is very much I was going to say creme de la creme, but then I thought of the creme de la creme.
I like that.
Of your sort of lower table teams. That's why I think he's taken it. Whereas I feel like Steve Bruce, at least recently, is more like an upper end Championship manager.
Yeah. Yeah, Big Sam didn't enter the thoughts there. But there you go. We move on.
I didn't realise that Steve Bruce was a manager in the Prem so recently. Obviously, Newcastle pre-ownership.
Yeah, that was the recent thought. Because you said 2022,
yeah,
I was trying to think. I think it might have been slightly before that, but it wasn't too long ago. That was what pushed it towards Steve Bruce, to be honest. But there you go. We move on.
On to the next one. So now the next one is the least amount of away wins in the Premier League in a season. Name any of the 6 teams not to win an away game across a season. So you get a point for naming any of the 6 teams.
Derby instantly springs to mind as the team with the least amount of points in a season, I believe.
They did win one game that season, but was it a home game or was it an away game?
I'm trying to think through other viable suggestions. So you had Derby with that shocker. I'm trying to think other teams that have been right down there. Literally, I'm having a mind blank here. Trying to think other teams that were that far down, but my mind is.
Well, they could have a great home form though. They could have won every home game and just lost every away game.
Yeah, true.
For balance.
True. You know what? To save us both sitting here for 4 minutes whilst I try and think for another team, I'm just going to go with Derby.
Okay. The teams are Leeds, 92-93, Coventry, 99-2000, Wolves, 2003-2004, Norwich, 04-05, Derby, 07-08. Their one win was at home, and Hull, 2009-2010. So that is a point.
Do you know what? Hull was going to be another suggestion, but I couldn't think. I knew the season they went down, but I remember, weren't they top of the league one season and then ended up going down? They were top at like late November and ended up getting relegated, I'm sure, Hull one season. So I thought, don't know if they would go a whole season without winning at home. But there you go. I'll take that. We're
winning away, not winning at home.
1-0? Yes.
1-0. And the last one, in the most and least round, which team has the most promotions and the most relegations? So they are joint on promotions with West Brom. Both had 5, but this team also has the most relegations. So a little clue there, it's not West Brom.
Relegations to the Prem.
Relegations from the Prem. So they have...
To the Prem. Okay, yeah.
They have the same amount of promotions as West Brom, but they are on their own in relegations.
Right. I'm trying to think yo-yo teams. My instant thought was Norwich. You've also got Watford, who are quite a yo-yo team.
Thinking yo-yo is an excellent way to go here, because I feel like this is the definition of yo-yo here.
So you've got Norwich,
will you get Watford, the right yo-yo team? Yo-yo. There's a couple in there where jump up, jump down.
Jump all around. Come outside.
Up in the air or on the ground. Come for a walk. Come for a ride.
This could be completely wrong, but I feel like Sunderland were yo-yo at a point, but I don't think to the same extent as the others. And then also Stoke as well. You know what? I'm gonna go with what my first thought was, which was Norwich.
Okay, you've gone your first thought of Norwich. You were correct to go with your first thought of Norwich as a second point. Oh, this is some. I'll tell you what. This is some good, solid ball knowledge from yours. I was a bit worried.
Don't sound so surprised.
I was a bit worried that I was going to go a little bit too difficult, but you're 2-1 up.
It's early doors.
Going out of the first round. Sam Allardyce doing you a mischief when you're too busy thinking of the 3 alkies in the corner of the classroom there. Not enough thinking of big and little Sam. Well, to be fair, little Sam wasn't with him at Leeds, but I think he was doing jury duty.
Spirit.
I'm sure that's what it was. Okay. Round 3 is December. So question number 1. In December 2022, Arsenal played 2 games. Name either of the teams they played.
That's a tough old question, that is.
But it was the games after the World Cup. There was one game on Boxing Day, and there was one game on New Year's Eve. 2 big games in the footballing calendar, and it's just after the World Cup. And you would have watched both of them.
You know what? I can't remember the games last year, but my instant thought, because we always seem to play them in that period, is West Ham. But for some reason, I can't think back to the games last year after the World Cup. But I feel like Southampton we always play around then as well. They were still in the Prem at that point, I think, weren't they? Do I go West Ham or Southampton?
So is that your thought process? Are they the 2 teams that
it's between them two. It's between them 2 for me. I'm just trying to think. So one was on Boxing Day, one was New Year's Eve.
Yes, correct. They're the only games we played in December. because of the World Cup.
Yeah, because I was thinking New Year's Day. I remember playing City, but I think that was
the year before.
Yeah, I'm gonna go West Ham. I'm gonna go West Ham.
Yeah, thinking about the teams we usually play around that time of year, and we actually have West Ham again, I think, in December of this year.
We do.
And the correct answer, of course, was December on Boxing Day. I'm surprised you didn't remember me messaging you while I was climbing the peak of a mountain during that game. I got chased by it was indeed West Ham. I got chased by a bee in a 35-degree heat while that West Ham game was ongoing. I woke up at 6 a.m. to climb a bloody mountain. I was in Australia at this point. I would like to hasten to add, it was a disgrace.
It's still tapped behaviour. You can't justify that a 6 a.m. mountain climb with the fact you're in Australia on Boxing Day of all days.
That worked. It was on 27th for me, to be fair.
We might let you off slightly. It was
a lovely climb. It was a great view. I can't remember the peak's name now, but it was an absolute cracker.
What was the score in that game? Out of interest.
It was 3-1 to Arsenal. The other team was Brighton, who we beat 4-2 on New Year's Eve.
There you go. I'll take that.
That's a third on the board.
The tactic worked well for me there. Of just
going with your instinct has done you well so far, Kiz. Your instinct for each of your questions has been correct so far.
Trust your gut, people. Trust your gut.
Question number 2. On December 7th, 2019, the BBC goal of the season for the Premier League that year was scored against Burnley. But who scored the goal?
Scored against Burnley?
Yes, so it's December 7th, 2019, and it was subsequently the 1920 goal of the season for the BBC. Who scored that goal?
For some strange reason, my instant thought was Kasami with that goal for Fulham. But I feel like that just came to me out of nowhere.
Well, your gut instincts have been doing you well so far. Do you want to stick with it?
Because I don't remember if it was that year, but I'm sure he won goal of the season a few years back. As soon as you said that year, I just had a vision of him chesting it down, like he's running across the defender. He chests it down and then just a volley into like the other corner, unreal goal. But I don't know if he actually won goal of the season that year. Let me have a little think around it. So 1920, goal was scored against Burnley in December. That's a tough old question there. That is a tough old question.
They're not all easy, kids. They're not all easy.
Because I literally have no other guess, I'm going to go with Kasami for Fulham. But
the correct answer, and I believe it also won the Puskas that year. I may be wrong on that one, though. No, was Sun. Oh. Sun against Burnley for Spurs, December 2019. The Kasami goal was 2013.
Oh, wow. That's a long time ago. I thought it was more recent than that. What was the Son goal? I don't remember him scoring an unreal goal.
I can't lie to you, Kiz. I just Wikipedia'd BBC goal of the season and looked at ones that are in December. Wrong, so I can't beautifully describe that goal as I'd like to.
Kasami might not have even been an active player at that point, but I reckon he won it that year. I reckon he just give it to me.
He's only 31, Kasami. He's currently only 31. He plays for Sampdoria.
Really?
He's played 8 games and scored 1 goal. There you go. There's your Kasami facts. For like every week, we end up doing a little deep dive on one relatively obscure player. Sarpreet Singh will never be beaten in that sense, but it's always nice to have a little delve. So thankfully, we're not out of reach yet. That's a point on the board for me there. You're 3-2 up, and that's question 5 overall. We're now on question 3 in round 2, question 6 overall. Name any of the 4 clubs who will participate in the last games of December 2023. So there's 2 games on at the same time. So they're the joint last games of December this year, of the year overall. 2 p.m. on New Year's Eve. Name any of the 4 clubs.
You're killing me.
Can he draw level? Right. What's the instinct saying?
Well, I'm trying to think first who Arsenal have got around that time. So, no, we're playing on the 28th, but then I don't know if we're playing.
Don't be Googling now.
I'm not Googling. I'm literally trying to think who we're playing because I can't even remember who we're playing on the 28th. We've got Liverpool on the 23rd, and then we're playing the 28th.
think back to the previous question. We're talking about Arsenal in December. That'll answer that for you.
Oh yeah, West Ham.
West Ham on the 28th.
West Ham. I'm trying to work logically, because if we're playing the 23rd and the 28th, would it be feasible we have a game on the 31st? I feel like it would, but we could be on New Year's Day either. Actually, saying that, why do I feel like we're playing on the 2nd? Mate, this is just going to be a merry-go-round. I could name any team now. Might just do a lucky dip in my mind.
To help you potentially with your Arsenal thought process there, or your general thought process, I don't know. Would you like me to give you the dates of the games over that game week?
Yes, go on.
So there are games on the 30th of December, which is the Saturday.
Yeah.
There are games on the 31st of December, which is the Sunday. Yeah. There's games on the 1st and the 2nd of January, the Monday and Tuesday. So the game week goes from the 30th of December to the 2nd of January.
My thought process is, I feel like it's going to be like an evening game. Oh no, did you say 2 o'clock?
It's 2 o'clock. It's not going to be an evening game. It's New Year's Eve, boss.
2 o'clock. I feel like okay, this is the quite far-fetched thought process, but I feel like they're going to put a couple of the bigger teams in that slot, because it's a New Year's Eve.
Are you sticking?
I'm thinking United or Liverpool. Actually, is my new
you've been
thought
drawn.
Process. Just because I feel. I'm
like
going to guess one of the top 6. It's a complete punt. I can go back and forth for this for ages. I'll go with United. I'll go with United.
Okay.
Man United, that is. Manchester United.
Okay. Man United are playing on the 30th on the Saturday at 5:30. They are one of the last games of December, as they're the last game of that day. They're not the last game of December.
Oh, you should give it to me then.
It's Spurs against Bournemouth, and the other game
is Liverpool,
Fulham against Arsenal.
Fuck's sake.
The instinct there. The instinct was going well, kids.
I went against my rules. I went against the rules. I said I'm going with my first instinct. But the fact I couldn't remember the fixtures is what... Because usually I'd have a rough idea who Arsenal are playing, but I don't really look for any of the other fixtures like a few weeks in advance. So... There you go. What's that? 3-3 then. 3-3 into the last.
So you went out of round 1 with a 2-1 win, out of round 2 with a 2-1 loss. So you need to get 3 points minimum in this last round. So this is the connections round, kids. So there's two questions, and there are 2 points available for each question. The first question, I'm going to list you 3 first names, and you've got to tell me what their connection is for 1 point and what the surnames are for an extra point. I need all 3 surnames for the bonus point. I need the connection for the first point. Okay. So those names are Gabriel, Roque, and Andy.
So these are first names?
Yes. Gabriel, Roque, and Andy.
And they all have the same. They all have the same surname.
There's a connection between.
There's a connection.
The surnames, but what is that connection? Well, there's a connection between these players, I should say. So I want their surnames, and there's a connection between the players.
Gabriel, Roque, and Andy.
So when I say Gabriel, what's your immediate thought? Let's go down this route.
I'm thinking Jesus, Santa Cruz, and Andy's evaded me a bit. Andy Johnson was what initially came to mind.
What do you think? So with the 2 that you think you have, what do you think the link could be?
Well, you've got Jesus and Santa, so there's a obviously Christmassy theme going on there. But Andy... So, sorry, what are the 2 points for? One's for the connection between them.
And one's for all 3 surnames.
All 3 surnames.
So if you can't think of the third one, and you want to just hit the connection and take your point, you can do that. If you want to,
I'm just trying to think through. If it was Christmas as the connection, what could Andy be? Because the only thought I had was Andy Johnson, but that doesn't feed into that.
Depends what you ask for, I guess.
Andy.
No, so your only Andy instinct is Johnson, Kears.
Andy. Fuck's sake, Andy.
Is it?
Come
If it's
to
not,
me, please.
if it's not coming to you, we can just take your connection answer.
I'll go Christmas as the connection. I think surname.
It's the Andy not happening. So you've got Gabriel Jesus. You're going Roque Santa Cruz. The Andy's not coming to you.
The Andy's not coming.
Okay, is that your final one?
I feel like I'm going to kick myself when I hear it, but yeah,
okay.
It's not coming.
So
we'll be here all day.
So it is Gabriel, the baby Jesus,
Yeah.
Roque, Santa Claus Cruz, Andy, Christmas Carol.
Oh, Andy Carroll.
And the connection, of course, is Christmas.
Andy Carroll. Oh, I'm disappointed in that. At least I got. So I'm still
You're
still
in the game. You need both points to win, Kieran. I could not have written it better to go down to the final question.
Is this the last question?
This is the last question of the quiz. Okay. What links the clubs currently in 9th, 10th, 11th and 12th? So you get 1 point for naming those 4 clubs. Don't look at the league for me.
What links the clubs?
1 point for naming the clubs, 1 point for naming the link. So they are currently, as it stands, in 9th, 10th, 11th and 12th.
That's a hard question. And what
I feel like we've had a mix of tricky and decent questions in there. If I do say so myself, it's been a solid quiz. While you think, Kiz, I'll put you on a bit of thinking music.
Get the elevator music on. 9th, 10th. Brentford, I'm sure, are in there. Chelsea are in there. Oh, I've just had a brainwave.
Oh, hello.
Because I've got 2 that I feel like they're all London-based. Because I've got Brentford, Chelsea. Who else would be in that mix? Palace. Oh, give me a minute. I could be on something here.
I think you're getting there now.
Maybe West Ham. Let me have a think through who else could be there, though. So you got Arsenal aren't there. Arsenal aren't there. I feel like I'm countdown here. Arsenal aren't there. Spurs aren't there. Chelsea are there. West Ham. Chelsea, West Ham, Brentford, Palace. Oh, Fulham are there as well. Could Fulham be in there? They could be. Shit, one of the teams is not going to be there.
Okay.
Then. Oh no!
I've
got 5 London clubs. I need to narrow down to 4. Right. So the connection I'm going is the connection I'm going is they're all London based.
Okay, you're saying they're all London clubs for the connection. What are the 4 teams you're saying?
Right. Can I list my 5 and then I'm going to get rid of one?
If you want to.
So this isn't my final answer.
As long as you end on 4, Kiz, I don't care how you get there.
So it's between West Ham, Palace, Fulham, Chelsea and Brentford. So I need to get rid of one. 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, you said?
Yes.
Oh, this is going to get... I'm going to be fuming if I get this wrong. It would be quite funny if I'm on complete wrong tangent and it's not even London clubs and there's someone else thrown in there as well. But
okay. If you just want, you've told me the 5 teams you've got there. So if you just want to tell me the 1 team you're binning, I'll reaffirm the 4 teams you're choosing and your link, and then we'll get to the answer. If you're even barking up the right tree here, Kiers, with your potential connection of London clubs.
Right. Let me think it through. Give me 1 minute. So Brentford, I feel.
I will give you 10 seconds.
Chelsea, I feel, are definitely there.
5 seconds. You've had a lot of time here, Kiers, so I am pushing the rush on. That is time. What you got for me?
Fuck! I feel like either Fulham are below or West Ham are above. West Ham are not there.
West Ham are not there. Okay, we're going to go in reverse order. So you're saying the link is London clubs, and your teams are Palace, Brentford, Fulham, and Chelsea. So currently in 12th place is Crystal Palace.
I think it's
currently in 11th place is Brentford.
Fulham aren't there, for fuck's sake.
Currently in 10th place is Chelsea. I hear you've lost faith. Is that lost faith worth it?
Fulham
in ninth place is West Ham. You are incorrect. You are a massive loser. The clue, the connection was London clubs, but it was West Ham, Chelsea, Brentford, Palace. Fulham are currently in 14th place. Wolves.
I knew it was either Fulham.
Wolves are in between Palace and Fulham, so that keeps it down. That prevents you from the win there, Kears. It ends 5 correct, 5 incorrect. You got half. You didn't get more than half. So that ends on a point, a much needed, a much wanted, a much appreciated point on the board in the road to Christmas for me there.
Robbed VAR.
You can VAR it all you like. VAR. Well, great process, but lads, great bloody process. So that is all the time we've got for this week. On that excellent note, we'll be back next week with more predictions, a bit of FPL chat over the course of the week, a game of Who's That, a game of Sudden Death, and maybe a couple of extra things in between. Kears, thanks for joining me.
I would usually say it's been a pleasure, but on that ending, it's far from a pleasure. But
thanks for playing.
We go again.
Don't hate the player, hate the game. Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll see you all next week.
It's all about the game and how you play it. All about control, and if you can take it. All about your debt, and if you can pay it. It's all about pain and who's gonna make it. I am the game, you don't wanna play me.